I'm Dr. Frederick Peters, the fitness doctor, and today I'm going to be talking about exercising despite poor air quality. And as many of us have noticed, the air quality in this northeastern part of the country has been poor as of late, even reaching levels never seen before, up in this Cleveland, Ohio area, up around 300, and that's in terms of the air quality index. I think it was even as high as like 350. And what they're referring to there when they're talking about air quality is the PM, or the particulate matter. And so a lot of folks have asked, should I exercise outdoors if the air quality is poor? And that's something you definitely should be taking into consideration, okay? These dangerous chemicals that are being released as a result of the wildfire smoke can lead to serious health effects. And that's even if you're exposed for just, 10 minutes. It can really do some potential damage in the long run. This matter, this fine particulate matter, right, that's released from the smoke, and you could smell it when the levels are high enough. Those substances have a diameter of less than 2.5 micrometers, which is invisible to the naked eye, okay? And what happens is as you breathe these chemicals in, they go deep into your lungs, into little grape-like clusters at the bottom of your lung tissue called alveoli. At the level of the alveoli, this is where the gas exchange occurs, right? You breathe in oxygen. The oxygen goes into your lungs through the alveoli and into the bloodstream. And then as you exhale carbon dioxide. And so that barrier between the CO2 and oxygen gas exchange, that's what I'm referring to as far as the level of the lungs where this takes place, okay? And so at this level, this very fine particulate matter can enter into your bloodstream. Now, acute exposure can result in things like difficulty breathing, coughing, aggravation and asthma type symptoms, and even development of some serious chronic respiratory diseases. We're well aware that our air pollution is harmful, right? Everybody knows this. However, some individuals are more susceptible than others, like young children, like elderly people over the age of 65, for example, even people that are young, that work outdoors or want to exercise outdoors. It can be harmful, okay? And so on these bad air quality days, what I suggest is be cognizant, be aware of these when they occur. And so airnow.gov is a great resource that you can look up on your phone or on your laptop, and it will show you the air quality for that day in terms of the particulate matter and also in terms of ozone, which you also do not want to be exposed to frequently. A little sidebar on ozone. Some people say, well, I have an air filter in my home. I have an ionizer. Okay, the ionizing air filter systems, which you could see, it's like a light that's installed into a lot of individuals. They get it for their HVAC system. A byproduct of the ionization of the air is actually ozone. So I don't recommend people using ionizers for their air filtration. I personally have in my office and throughout my home HEPA filtration units. It's like a fan that's just circulating, and they do fantastic for filtering substances, and it even smaller than the 2.5 micrometers we discussed. So here's the big concern, right? If you're outside on a day that's poor air quality, like we've seen here recently, and this is again, July 5th today is 2023. And if you're exposed for a period of time, it's actually equivalent to smoking cigarettes. That's how harmful it could be. And at the level we saw last week, where it's up around 300 in terms of the air quality index, that's equivalent to smoking nearly a pack of cigarettes. Now, it's oftentimes even worse than, or even more toxic than the cigarette smoke, because wildfire smoke has a distinct mix of these particulates that activate inflammatory cells deep in our lungs. And that actually can hinder other cells in your lungs that would then dampen the inflammatory response later. Okay, and so it's even more harmful, to be quite honest, than a filter you'd find on a cigarette, because at least there's some filter on that, right? And obviously, smoking is terrible, and even vaping is terrible. That's another conversation. But some tips. So here's some tips for helping you and your family stay healthy, stay safe in an environment which doesn't appear to be changing anytime soon. As of right now, these wildfires are raging out of control. And even in other parts of the country, they're seeing, as the wind patterns change, the development of these poor air quality days. And there's a lot of folks in the scientific community believing that as climate change worsens, we will see this occurring on an annual basis, which is very unfortunate. So check those. Tip number one is to check those daily air pollution forecasts in your area. Like I mentioned, airnow.gov. And on there, you'll see it's color-coded based on the level of that day. Green is fantastic. Yellow, which is like 50 to 100, is still considered moderate or okay. 100 to 150 is where it starts becoming unhealthy for sensitive groups. Okay, but even individuals who aren't sensitive to these things, should still take precautions when being active outdoors. And then it goes up beyond that. With that in mind, avoid exercising outside when the pollution is bad, right? If you have a treadmill or access to a fitness facility, utilize that space. Also, for your children, be very aware of the time they're spending outdoors, okay? And this is really anything over 100 on the air quality scale. And as a matter of fact, research shows that if the air quality is over like 70 or 75, you really shouldn't even open the windows in your home, because the air quality outside is worse than the air quality inside. I always tell folks, be mindful when exercising near high traffic areas on main roads, right? Don't jog on the sidewalks if there's lots of cars because of the exhaust, because of the fumes. And that's even on good air quality days. So you have to be mindful of where you are at all times, honestly. In terms of exercising indoors, right? If, let's say, at your house you have a treadmill, make sure that your HVAC has an air filter installed, and a good air filter at that. What you want is a MERV rating, which you'll see on the air filter, of at least 13 or higher. And that determines the amount of particles that air filter can effectively filter out of the air. So a MERV rating of 13 or higher is what you want to look for. In addition to that, you want to make sure that your thermostat is switched to an on setting where the fan is constantly circulating instead of just the auto setting. In an auto setting, which is what your furnace would normally be at, the fan only runs when the system is pushing out cold air in the summer or hot air in the winter, right? In the on setting, the fan circulates continuously. You may have higher energy costs as a result of that, but you'll have constant filtration of your air. If you do decide to go outdoors and the air quality is kind of poor that day, let's say it's around 115, for example, go to lower pollution areas, right? Go to nature trails. Avoid the busier parts of town, right? That's your best bet. In your car, right? Your car also has a filtration system, and you'll notice on your car there'll be an air recirculation button you can actually press, and it shows you like an arrow with the circulation button. That recirculates the air inside your car through the air filter. So whenever I'm, let's say, stuck in traffic on a busy day, rather than having my car pull in the outside air and the fumes from other cars' exhausts, I'll hit that air recirculation button and it'll make sure that you have clean, fresh air. As far as the HEPA filters, like I mentioned, they're fantastic. I actually, again, I have no interest in any of these companies, but I use a Honeywell, HPA 300 it's called, and it's fantastic. It recirculates the air and filters the air in a pretty large space, but I actually have several of them. On the really poor air quality days, when you have to be outside, even walking from your car to the building, you could wear an N95 mask, right? You probably still have those from the pandemic, possibly. those respirator masks will filter out some of those particles. However, it will not filter out the hazardous gas that you'd find in the smoke, like carbon monoxide. And just to kind of reiterate the fact that working out or running in bad air quality has several negative effects. A recent study published in the European Heart Journal found that while physical activity is obviously very important, in highly polluted air, it can actually have detrimental cardiovascular effects. What they did is they looked at young adults who were exposed to what's considered high levels of particulate matter. They were found after this study that higher intensity exercises contribute to a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. So if you were to walk versus jog or jog versus run, the more intense the activity, the worse the effect on the lungs. And so you might say, well, what's safe, right? What's considered safe? Anything less than 100, in my estimation, is acceptable. Once you start getting into the orange area, you're more likely to be affected if you're in the sensitive population. And even a person who's not in the sensitive population, I'm not going to be exercising outdoors when the air quality is in the orange level. And so that's what I use personally. And don't assume, even if you're healthy, that you're okay to go out there, because you know what? These do have long-term health effects. And it's just one more thing to be mindful of and be aware of to protect yourself. That's my podcast, my video for today. If you have any questions, please let me know. I hope you like and share this video with your friends. Hopefully we'll be able to help them a little bit. And if you have any questions, you can find me at thefitnessdoctors.com. Take care.